Since 2020, 2021, we've increased engagement with our industry significantly. So we have very low engagement. You know, Jimmy, we're a mandatory organisation, if you like, for the sake of terminology. If you are an employer in the construction industry, you need to register with us, and you may. But we know a lot of very small businesses have Levy passed on, so they haven't got a Levy bill themselves. They might be registered with us, but they fall under the threshold. I understand if you're a small builder in particular, time is money, isn't it? And you cannot realistically expect a small builder to take an apprentice and lose money. There need to be better finance, and the CITB grant is great, but in and of itself, it doesn't make up for that lost money of giving up your time to properly mentor an apprentice. And today we need to prioritise new entrants, and we need to prioritise competence training.
Right.
So what we looked at was training that we were funding that wasn't adding value in those areas.
Yeah.
And that's the top and bottom of it. That really is the top and bottom of it. Where is the greatest value added? Well, the greatest value added is in tackling the skills shortages and the skills gaps. And the way to do that is to fund, support, redesign and prioritise new entrant training to get people in and keep people in, because it's about retention as well as starts. And to also keep people competent, get people to competence so that people are safe, so that they're compliant and so on. That is how we have prioritised it. And if they're a decent training provider, it's easy to get into the TPN. Seriously, the answer is as simple as that. If they are a decent training provider, it will not be problematic for them to get into the TPN.
Join us for your weekly deep dive into the beating heart of UK construction. From groundbreaking projects to game-changing innovations, the UK Construction Podcast brings you face-to-face with the industry's brightest minds and boldest thinkers. Each episode features candid conversations with construction leaders, architects, engineers, and on-site experts who share their hard-won insights and behind-the-scenes perspectives. We cut through the noise to deliver actionable intelligence on market trends, emerging technologies, and the forces shaping British building.
Hello all, welcome to another episode. Today I'm joined by Deb Madden, Executive Director of Engagement at CITB. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Deb previously on my own show, the Construction Cods podcast, and given the recent changes to CITB funding, it felt like the right time to invite her back for this conversation. We're here to talk through those changes, what they mean in practice, and to address some of the questions and concerns employers and training providers across the industry have been raising. This is a chance for those questions to be put directly and for CITB to explain the thinking behind the decisions. Let's get to it. Hi Deb, great speaking with you again.
Nice to see you, Jimmy. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's been a busy couple of months for you, hasn't it?
It certainly has, and it's not getting any less busy by the looks of things.
But you love it though. You love all this work, don't you?
I do. I absolutely do.
Yeah. Well, when we met before, certain things were quite new in CITB, like the employer network and stuff, weren't they? But a lot has happened since then, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Before we continue, would you mind just letting everyone know who you are and what your role is at CITB?
Sure. So I'm Deb Madden. I'm Exec Director at the CITB for Customer Engagement and Operations. And that in a nutshell means that I look after all of our customer engagement throughout England, Scotland and Wales. I also have responsibility for comms, marketing, customer experience and our commissioned projects as well. I also look after our grant and funding products and also the verification of our levy and grant. So yeah, quite a wide role.
So you're the perfect person to speak to about this then?
Well, I should be. Let's hope I am.
Yeah, great stuff. So, well, as you know, there's been some mixed feelings in the industry.
Absolutely.
So I want to act as a channel for the people to get some answers and also for you to have your say as an organisation.
Yeah.
I'm not here to pick sides, but I may challenge both sides a little bit.
It's fine.
You're aware that I reached out on social media to get people's input and to get their questions to put to you. I think seemed a lot of interest, but I didn't get much feedback of any real value. But I'll add the couple of comments that were there. So I've asked the people that I know personally, and I've done some research and come up with my own questions as well.
Yeah.
I'll go through most of the challenges individually. The changes individually, and we'll expand on a little bit. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Cool. So, as I say, there were a couple of bits of feedback. I'll put. I mean, they were quite contentious. So, the first comment was, so just reductions in funding and no additional opportunities for the industry.
Yeah. So, the thing is, since 2020, 2021, we've increased engagement with our industry significantly. So we have very low engagement. You know, Jimmy, we're a mandatory organisation, if you like, for the sake of terminology. If you are an employer in the construction industry, you need to register with us, and you may be liable to pay a levy. And for that reason, it doesn't feel like a membership organisation. We'd like it to feel like a membership organisation, but it doesn't to many members. And so we've had low engagement for many, many years. And one of the tasks I was given was to increase that engagement through my customer facing teams. And we've had what for us is a massively successful few years in terms of increasing engagement by 36%. Now, to get that many more companies engaged over the last few years, we're celebrating that, and the industry should celebrate that, because it means that more companies are thinking about training, and more companies are involved with CITB and taking the value from CITB. But when you realise that the vast majority of the companies who were previously disengaged are those small and micro companies who pay very little or no levy, you can see that we've created a bigger pull on the levy, but we've not increased the levy coming in. So we've created a pull on the funding and grant going out, but no increase on the levy coming in. So that's kind of the situation we're in. It's basic maths. We've got a fixed amount of levy coming in. Levy's set for the next few years. As you know, that's how the levy system works. And we've seen a massively increased pull on our grant and funding. So we had to do something to make sure that the books balance. We're a charity. We're also an arm's length body sponsored by DWP. It was DFE, it's now DWP. And as such, we're not like a normal business. We can't go out and borrow money to see us through a tough patch. We have to make sure that we've got sufficient reserves in place to make sure that we can pay grant out even when there's no levy coming in. We have 2 months of the year where no levy comes in. It's a bit like council tax. That's how the levy works. So you can see all of this combined. You look ahead and think, okay, we need to make sure that we've got some consistency of funding going forward, and we need to spread this funding further than we ever have before. So that's kind of the background to this, Jimmy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it does make sense. I'm glad you mentioned that the levy hasn't been increased. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you, like you say, you've done a really good job of increasing engagement, and you're also doing your job properly, doing your job well. Yeah. I sort of put some success on that on me for the last podcast episode. I think that obviously helped you out.
Definitely. Well, we laugh, but you know what, Jimmy, you've got a different audience to the audience we can reach, and that's exactly why I'm always happy to speak to you, because it means that we're reaching people that don't ordinarily want to talk to us. So exactly, take the credit.
Well, so it's kind of like the smaller business, isn't it, that don't always don't really know about what's going on, but also might be a little bit sort of overwhelmed or intimidated by about CITB.
Yeah. And a lot of companies, we still know this practice is not something we support, and it's not something that should ever happen. But we know a lot of very small businesses have levy passed on. So they haven't got a levy bill themselves. They might be registered with us, but they fall under the threshold. But if they're working for another contractor, some contractors still pass on that levy bill, which they're not meant to do. And I know it's really difficult for a small subby to challenge that, because they need the work, they need the continuity of work. But what I would say to those companies, because that's why it makes them suspicious of CITB and makes companies not like us and distrust us, but let us know about these companies, because you don't have to deal with it, we will.
Yeah, so is that kind of regulated? What can be done about that?
It's not regulated. It shouldn't be happening. But there is we don't have any legal recourse for it. But what we can do is pick up the phone and speak to these companies, because in many cases they just don't know that they shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's my experience of it. They genuinely don't know that they shouldn't be doing it, and
Right.
sometimes just a friendly call from us can stop that happening.
Yeah.
At the moment, we can't legally enforce it. No.
No. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. We'll lead on to the next um, comment. Can you ask where all the money is going? Only seeing big levy bills, minimal return, and then what's the salaries of the seniors?
Right. Okay. Well,
Asking for a friend.
we'll ask the well, I'll deal with the last question first. Our annual report and accounts have just been released. So you can go onto our website, you can look at the annual report and accounts. Every single salary from the chief executive across the entire executive team is there in that annual report and accounts, and the salaries for the rest of the organisation are there. Clearly not in detail for every member of the organisation, but it gives you enough insight, I would imagine, to be able to see what people are paid here. We're paid in line with public sector at the same grades. There are no gigantic salaries at senior level. They may feel like gigantic salaries, but if you look across the public sector, they're in line, Jimmy, with other salaries at that level.
Okay. So there is full transparency there then.
There is, yeah, there absolutely is. And those, like I say, those annual reporting accounts are there in the public domain for anybody to go and have a look at. I think from memory, the salary information or the remuneration information, I should say, to give it its proper title, is right near the end of the annual reporting accounts. So,
Right.
yeah.
Cool. Okay. So where all the money is going, only seeing big levy bills, minimal return.
Yeah. So again, there's a couple of things in there. The annual reporting accounts will tell you exactly where all the money is going, and it's broken down fairly into the minutiae. You will be able to see clearly where the spend is going. A lot of people think we're a very expensive company to run, and we may well be, but we also have commercial income, which covers a great deal of our running costs. So it's interesting for you to go and have a look at that. Now, we don't return every single penny of levy in grant and funding, because we do things like run the new entrant support team, which has a cost to it. We run the advisory team, which has a cost to it. We are facilitating the competence frameworks, which has a cost to it. We carry out a lot of industry research, which is hugely useful to the industry, and we've fed back on that so often that research, but again, that has a cost to it. So because you're paying levy in, and we need to move away from this idea of I'm paying £100,000 worth of levy in, I want £100,000 of grant back. Well, hang on a minute. You're getting some of that levy back in from Go Construct, which is a careers portal that matches apprentices to jobs. You're getting some of that money back because you've got an advisor on hand whenever you want them. You're getting some of that money back because the Nest team are supporting your 5 apprentices. You're getting some of that money back because you're utilising the research reports we put out. Do you see where I'm coming from? It's about creating value. And a big part of this, and a big part of what we're choosing to do now, we don't sit in a darkened room and make decisions based on what we think is the right thing to do. We take industry feedback. We have governance committees throughout the organisation who are made up of industry specialists who contribute to our decision-making process. And we would put a series of options to those committees and to our board, and the decision is made at that point. That's basically how our governance works. And we don't do that blindly. We do it with the insight of those industry, well-informed industry people.
Yeah. So, yeah, you made a good point actually about the like for like. So the 100% return on what
It's
people
never going to
pay.
happen.
This is what I was going to point out actually. I think there is a little bit of a misconception. I think you touched on this when we spoke before actually, that
Yeah.
CITP isn't here to pay for training. It's here to support employees'
It is
training
here to
needs.
support, and what we really want to do, and another of the reasons for us doing this now, is that since Tim Balkin came in as our chief exec a few years ago, his take on the levy system is very different from perhaps where we've been previously. And we want to move away from this levying grant out, but we want to do that because we want to challenge the current skills system. The skills system doesn't work for construction. So we've got, as you will know, the vast majority of young people who come into the industry come in through FE. They come in through FE programs, which are educational programs in the main. And we need those educational programs to shift to be skills directed programs, so that when someone gets to the end of a program, they're employable or they have some hand skills that are useful to them on site. Now, this is not a blame FE situation. FE will deliver what FE is funded to deliver. And there are some fabulous FE colleges out there who deliver great stuff and have real good employer links. But the reality is we're losing between 50 and 60% of new entrants before they even get into a job. So we need to do something about that skills system. We need to have proper pathways, and that's why we're working with industry on competence frameworks. And those pathways need to be cemented and really well informed by employers and people who will use them. We need to have a training system that can supply all the training that is needed to deliver the training in those competence frameworks. And then, and this is the most important thing, we need employers who can truly believe in the system and can offer vacancies to young people, career returners, and whoever wants to come into our industry as a new entrant. So the challenge for us is, where do we focus the money? Where do we prioritise the money? Well, our answer is we focus it on new entrants and building that skills system around them, and we focus it on competence, or upskilling as it's more commonly known, but making sure that the industry has that real competence it needs to fill the skills gaps that we have, and has a real network in place to bring new entrants in to fill those skills shortages. And that's why partly why we've made the decision now. This has been the direction of travel for the last couple of years, but the pull on the grant, we had to make the decisions a little bit quicker than we would have liked, let's say.
Yes, well, you kind of answered my why now. That was my next question. Yeah, so is that the full answer?
I guess it is.
60% of people training don't end up working in construction. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
So why is that? Can you break that down?
There's a number of reasons. So FE colleges obviously will be funded to take a cohort of learners on whatever programs they deliver. It might be in a particular college, bricklaying, painting and decorating, joinery. Now, in the main, FE colleges will work with employers and try to make sure that they are delivering the right training for the employer need in that area. But there's no formalised establishment of what that supply and demand need is. So that's the first thing. So are we training too many bricklayers, for example, in the southeast? We don't know, because that training provider network is not linked with an employer network, and that local intelligence is not readily available. So it could just be, in some cases, a case of colleges are not training the right qualifications for the area. There's then an argument that the qualifications in colleges are not geared towards working on site. And again, that could be for a number of reasons. It could be in some colleges, you'll have a real expert cohort of tutors and assessors who are really making sure that those young people get the right skills that they need. They're really embedded and engaged with local employers. And there's lots of synchronicity between the two. Employers will come into colleges staff will go out on site and all of that stuff. But that stuff doesn't happen by accident, and it needs coordinating and managing, and that's one of the things that doesn't happen in a coordinated way across England, Scotland and Wales. The other thing is that a lot of young people go into college because that's the only thing that's left for them to do. So they've left school at 16 maybe, or at 17, and there's no job for them, or they're not ready to go into the job market. There's no apprenticeship for them because, as we previously said, there's not loads of vacancies out there. There's loads of applicants, but not loads of vacancies. And some people go into college for all the wrong reasons because, for example, by not going into college or taking a job instead, their family would lose benefits, and that's a real issue that needs to be addressed. It's a government issue that needs to be addressed, clearly. It's not something that the industry can do anything about. But what that means is that as people go through that 2-year or 3-year programme at college, people start to drop out because they're not there for the right reasons. They're not motivated to be there. They're not there because they've got a passion about construction. And the thing that bothers me about that is because FE courses then start to get a bad rap, the young people who are in there really committed and passionate can often get missed. So it's a combination of things, Jimmy, that just the whole system needs to be reset and sorted out. That will take some time. Now, the government announced the 600 million of funding, which is for construction training. Majority of that, or a good proportion of that, will go into FE to make FE work again. And we've got some fabulous people who are on the Construction Skills Mission Board who are helping to make that happen. The person that springs to mind is Nikki Davis, who's the principal at Leeds College of Building, and she is very forthright and direct about what the issues are. And she will help to shape how that funding is spent and how the government make decisions about what we do with that funding.
Yes, well, very thorough that answer.
Sorry, I was talking too much.
No, that's good. We need the information. That's what it's all about. That's what you're here for. I think there's probably a couple of other reasons. One very simple reason that maybe they do the course and they just don't fancy it.
Yeah,
it's not attractive enough. You know, the industry isn't that greatly attractive at the moment for various reasons.
Yeah. You know what, Jimmy? There are some young people who don't realise how cold it is in January at 7:30 in the morning. Seriously, I'm not belittling anyone at all. It's the reality of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's tough. Getting up December, January, February, and going on site. It's a tough ask.
I'm telling you,
and you're either made for it or you're not.
Well, exactly. I mean, I used to be a ground worker for years, and that is partly what got me out of it, because as I got older, every winter going in and like my hands are frozen, picking up a shovel and it's just frozen and I can't dig into the sand. I'm thinking, no, this isn't for me anymore. Got to get out.
It's a lot warmer in a crane cab, isn't it? My husband, years and years ago, when he first started out, he was a railway worker for many years. Never fancied office work, but he fancied it after 10 years shoveling on track. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. I think so. Might be partly to do with the. I've had a lot of people contact me recently because they can't find work. We've hit a real bad period lately, haven't we? So that's partly why as well. I don't know where the figures started and ended, this 6%, but I think that's partly to do with it at the moment. It's been really hard to find work.
Yeah, we often talk about having an attraction problem in construction, and there are all kinds of debates to be had around that. And in fact, we touched on them last time we spoke, Jimmy. But there isn't really an attraction problem in the sense that we've got more applicants than we've got vacancies. But that is problematic. And at the new entrant end, I understand if you're a small builder in particular, time is money, isn't it? And you cannot realistically expect a small builder to take an apprentice and lose money. There need to be better finance, and the CITB grant is great, but in and of itself, it doesn't make up for that lost money of giving up your time to properly mentor an apprentice, and to get an apprentice through, and to get them making money for you, which is the ultimate aim. You've got to give up that time, and you've got to be really engaged with that apprentice. They're not there to sweep up and make tea. They're there to learn, but that takes time from your daily grind, doesn't it?
Yeah, that is part of the problem, because I do know of some, not going to name the names, but I've heard of some companies that just use apprentices for cheap labour, and don't guarantee a job at the end of it anyway. Which is very naughty.
There is that, and our new entrant team is trying. That's what we're trying to stamp out a little bit. But what I will say, because I always defend this industry, because there is a massive number of brilliant companies who year after year after year train apprentices in full knowledge, and the small and micro builders largely, in full knowledge that apprentice will stay with them for a couple of years and then will move on to a different subby, or they will move on and set up their own business. And do you know what? They are the companies that are keeping the industry going. Seriously.
Yeah, well, it's integrity, isn't it? It's you know, it's about passing on. I always say this: it's passing on your knowledge and passing on what you know to keep it going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, Right, so that's good. Am I right in saying that CITB no longer has reserves to draw on in the same way as it did previously?
So we got a lot of stick last year because we appeared to be awash with money. Um, we were quoted as having 100 million reserves in the bank, but that was based on the annual report and accounts from the year previously, because everything's always a year behind with that. We have to keep 50 million in reserves. That's I mentioned earlier. We collect levy for 10 months of the year. So for the 2 months that we don't collect levy, obviously need to continue to pay funding. We need to continue to run the business and pay the grants and so on. So we need to keep 50 million of reserves. That isn't us saying, oh, we need to feel safe. That is a legal requirement that we have to keep that. So we do receive a lot of criticism, people saying you need to spend that 50 million on the industry. It's not that we're not spending it. We have to keep it in reserve.
Right. Okay. Okay. And again, am I right in saying that only 10% of construction training is funded by the levy?
It's an approximation, and it's but it's the most accurate we can get it. Yes, that's probably right. We couldn't give you exact figures, but the levy's designed originally. The levy was designed to be a fail-safe, to be in the case of market failure, we would step in and support, and in some instances we still do that. There's a recent example of floor covering in Scotland. The provider failed, and we took it over and made sure that there was still floor covering training. So that's the kind of thing that originally the levy was intended for, but now it's more of a support and influencer of the system, if you like. But yeah, billions spent on construction training, billions, and you could say that CITB's levy is a drop in the ocean. But it's about steering people to do the right kinds of training. It's about being future focused and looking forward.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So where does the rest of the fund come from?
Employers paying for training themselves, direct investment. Most companies have a massive training budget. If you look at the large contractors, they will have really significant training budgets, and anything they get back from CITB will likely be a drop in the ocean for them. So employer direct investment, there's government funded provision as well, of course. There's lots of local and regional funding, and a lot of individual learner contributions too. People will take responsibility for their own training. There's lots of learner loans out there and so on, and self-funded programs too.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Can you sort of name any other areas of funding where people can go to rather than the CITB?
I can't name any specific ones, but I can say that a lot of skills funding will move to the devolved administrations, so the mayoral authorities. Lots of skills funding will move there, so you will start to see pockets of funding pop up, and there will be pockets of funding out there already. But things like boot camps, things like sector skills academies, all of these locally and regionally based programs, and a lot of training providers. There's some really savvy training providers out there who will go direct to either the local authorities, or they'll go direct to government, and they'll have funding in place to cover MVQs, for example. So yeah, I ask, and we can. So whilst I'm sitting here saying I can't give you specifics, my team will know about this. So my local advisors in the areas, they will know where to direct and signpost people to. So use those advisors, use them.
I agree with that. I'm going to touch on that in a bit actually as well, because they are very good, the local advisors, the dealings we've had with them.
Yeah.
So let's get on to prioritisation. You mentioned this earlier. It seems like it's been a large factor of what you've been doing. There's always going to be trade-offs with decisions like this. Did you look at areas where funding was consistently underspent and remove those first?
We looked at. No, we didn't. Because we looked at this in a different way. We need to prioritise new entrants, and we need to prioritise competence training.
Right.
So what we looked at was training that we were funding that wasn't adding value in those areas.
Yeah.
And that's the top and bottom of it. That really is the top and bottom of it. Where is the greatest value added? Well, the greatest value added is in tackling the skills shortages and the skills gaps. And the way to do that is to fund, support, redesign, and prioritise new entrant training to get people in and keep people in, because it's about retention as well as starts, and to also keep people competent, get people to competence so that people are safe, so that they're compliant, and so on. That is how we have prioritised it. And there's nothing complex about this. It's really simple.
Yeah, so that actually answers one of my later questions. I want to talk about the level 7s, managerial roles. One of my assessors, I'll speak about that later, but you don't provide funding for management roles. So that is because you're looking more for the new entrants.
We do provide funding. So we've removed level 7s because that's in line with government. Government no longer fund level 7 apprenticeships, for example. We looked at we're talking about long qualifications here, aren't we? So
Yeah.
The long qualifications, we've removed the attendance grant from long qualifications. We looked at what was coming through on those long qualifications, and we did some analysis on it, and lots of degrees are coming through on those long qualifications. If that is something that is needed to either change someone's career path or to bring someone in, then that should be funded through a high level apprenticeship. And we've not removed any funding from that. So that's still there for the taking. We also know that aside from apprenticeships, attendance grant doesn't really add any value. It's the achievement grant that adds the value. We want people to achieve and get to that competence level. So we've left the achievement grant in, we've aligned it with other achievement grants, but we've removed the attendance.
Right, okay. There's a lot of grants.
Yeah.
A lot of grants available.
We're trying to simplify, and this is the biggest criticism and the most constant criticism we get is there's so many grants, I don't understand it, it's really bureaucratic, it's really complicated, which grants for what.
Yeah.
We're trying to remove that complication and that bureaucracy. And I know it feels like we're just taking, we get that.
Yeah.
But we've had to make some decisions about how we simplify this complex system, because it is a complex system, and how best can we attack those skills shortages and skills gaps. And the level 7 qualifications were not part of that drive to fill skills gaps. They can be done in another way.
Yeah, so with the skills gaps, so you're obviously looking at areas where there is a shortage and prioritising those, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Short course training.
Yes.
Before we start, actually, we've been talking about employer networks and the grant schemes. Can you just explain the difference between those?
So,
Yeah.
So the grant scheme is it's very transactional. You do a course, you claim a grant, and it sounds really simple, but employers tell me it's not simple. It's an absolute nuisance, claiming 50 quid back for this and 60 quid back for that, and whatever it might be. And a lot of people don't bother to claim it back because it's such a pain to do. Employer networks, you either speak with an advisor, or some people go direct to a training provider, and that then gets booked via our course booking system. It's subsidised at source, so you just pay the remainder. Now, that to me sounds a lot simpler than having to trawl through reams of spreadsheets to find the course, to see whether it's grant funded, and then book it yourself, and then fill in a long-winded form to claim 50 quid back. So we're trying to remove that bureaucracy and bring in more simplicity. So that's the difference for me. We do the work for you with the employer networks. And as we move ahead with employer networks, it will become more and more automated.
Oh, okay.
We won't remove people, but at the minute we've got course bookers who are manually booking all of the courses, for example. Our aim with that is to make it even more simplistic, so that it's automated booking, your subsidy will be automatically applied and so on, and the training provider will just then be able to invoice you for the remainder.
Okay. Yeah, so one trade-off to being in the EM is that there is a contribution for the employer.
There is. Well, In most of the short course grants, there was. We weren't paying for the entirety of a program with short
Oh,
course
okay.
grants. Occasionally you would get the same as you'd paid out, but generally speaking, there was a contribution to be made. And with the EN, yes, we've reduced the subsidy to 50%. That's one of the and that's so that we can make it go further. That goes back to my original. We're trying to do more with the same.
Yeah.
We're trying to cover more employers, so that it follows, doesn't it, that we would need to reduce that subsidy a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is what we need to clarify. A lot of people saying you've cut the funding. The funding is cut, but it hasn't. It's just spreading further.
We're still spending exactly the same amount of money.
Yeah.
We just have to make it go a bit further.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
But
So,
I appreciate to Joe Blogg's employer, who now gets 50% subsidy instead of 70% or 100% or wherever it might have been. That feels like that doesn't feel good. I get that. I get it. But
Yeah.
we just have to understand that this is for the broader good of the industry.
yeah,
Not
sure.
taking away from them that it feels like we've done them dirty, Jimmy. I'm not going to take that away from them. I would probably, in their shoes, feel exactly the same. But we just want people to understand why we've done it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but there are going to be people who benefit from this, and there are going to be people who actually, they might be stung a little bit.
Yeah.
So short course training is no longer funded through the grant scheme.
No, there's a couple of exceptions for plants and scaffolding.
Scaffolding.
Yeah.
Yes. Why was that moved exclusively to the employer networks?
Now a quick word from our sponsor, Webb Motion Media.
Are you ready to transform your online presence? At Webb Motion Media, we're not just another digital agency, we're your partner in digital success. Our expert team delivers results-driven SEO that puts you at the top of search rankings, stunning web designs that convert visitors into customers, and data-backed PPC campaigns that maximize your ROI. Plus, our conversion rate optimization ensures every visitor counts. Don't just take our word for it. Our clients see an average of 40% increase in online revenue within the first 6 months. Ready to elevate your digital game? Visit our website from the links below this video or call us today for a free consultation, and let's turn your digital dreams into reality.
So I'm going to be very honest with you and say that it was a step too far. The scaffolding and plants a fairly complex funding mechanism, and it was decided that we would leave it where it was for the time being. I'm not suggesting we're going to remove it anytime soon, by the way. I don't want to set any hairs running, but we've decided we would leave that there. Or are you asking more generally as to why it was moved?
Yeah. Why was the short course training no longer funded through the grant scheme? That's what I'm asking.
So again, just to simplify it, it's that the short course training grant was the one that was complained about most often by employers. Most often.
Okay.
That it wasn't worth the bureaucracy. So do something different with it. And that's why we moved it to employer networks, to completely simplify it.
Yeah, there is a bit of an issue, a bit of a drawback with this. Some employers don't want to or don't need to be in the employer network. So what can be said for them?
I think this idea that you have to be in an employer network, you don't have to join anything, you don't have to sign up to anything. That's just the access route,
Right.
to claiming grants. Claiming grants, to getting the course funded. Look, I'm so embedded with grants. I'm still saying claiming grants. It is just the route to getting your subsidised training. That's all. You're not in an employer network, as in you've signed up, you can't get out. That's not the idea of them. An employer network is a group of employers in a locality, and there is a steering group for each network. And that's a small number of employers who, because we're going to be budget led instead of demand led, will make decisions about what the money is spent on going forward.
Right. So am I right in saying that training can only be funded by providers in the TPN who work closely with the employer network?
That will be eventually where we go to, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the
But
TPN
at the
being
minute, we're still signing training providers up to the TPN. So there's some
yes,
flexibility there, Jimmy. So speak to us about that. Speak to your local advisor about that. If you've got a provider that you're using and you want to access funding through the employer network, just speak to your advisor about that at the moment. Longer term, yes, that's where we're headed, that you will only access funding through providers who are on that training provider network. And that's all about making sure that the quality is there, making sure that they've gone through a process of due diligence and so on.
yeah, I was going to say, because some employers have got their trusted providers who may not be in the TPN, they might want to carry on using them. So, how easily can these people get in there, and what's the criteria?
If they're a decent training provider, it's easy to get into the TPN. Seriously, the answer is as simple as that. If they are a decent training provider, it will not be problematic for them to get into the TPN.
How do you know if they're decent?
Due diligence, so they've got good financial records, they've got a good track record of delivery, and they've got the right connections and links and accreditations that they need to deliver the training they're delivering. It really is as simple as that. So
Right.
if these employers are using a training provider that has performed for them year on year, it is highly unlikely that they wouldn't get in the TPN.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, so
You know, we don't want, there are some, look, let's be really, really honest about this. There are some proper dodgy training providers out there, and we want to stop our employers using them because they're getting ripped off and they're not getting the right training from them. It's as
yeah,
simple as that.
yeah, that makes sense.
This is not about us saying, oh, you're not reaching this incredibly high standard here. We're saying to them, are you a decent provider? Have you got financial stability? Have you got a track record? Are you growing a track record? That's great. Come and join us in the TPN. It honestly is as simple as that.
Okay, so if I'm a training provider, obviously
Yeah.
I'm gonna. It's kind of like a credibility thing, isn't it? Being in the TPN, but are there any other benefits to it?
Yeah, I mean, you will, as a training provider network member, you will have access to data that you wouldn't ordinarily have access to. So we don't give employer data away, clearly. We would never do that. But you get access to where is the demand going to be over the next few years, and equally you're in there with other training providers. You can start to have discussions about, well, this demand is coming down the track. How about we get together and decide we're going to focus here, we're going to focus there. So it's not about removing competition, but it is about making sure that we can match supply and demand, and that we have the right training provision in each region to deliver what will be needed with the pipeline of work. It also, if you are a new employer and you are working with CITB, it will build confidence in them to know that you're in the training provider network. It builds close collaboration with us. Some training providers there are a lot of training providers who are queuing up to be in the TPN because they want to work more closely with us. It gives, and eventually, of course, we will only pay grant funding to those in the training provider network. So it's a good idea to get in now, probably.
Yeah, but it doesn't guarantee bookings, though, does it?
Doesn't guarantee bookings. No, it doesn't, because that will always be about employer choice. Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I really do, because there is a lot of support there. I mean, I've worked closely with you guys, and I know that the support is there. So I think that is a big plus to be in that network.
Yeah.
I do.
We have a training provider network leadership group. I know it's a bit of a mouthful. It's a group of training providers who we've actually got a meeting this week, who come together and we put proposals to them about how the training provider network is going to develop. We get insight from them, we get information from them. They're talking to other training providers. So this is it's not about CITB directing this. It is about us facilitating this training provider network and making sure that we're taking the views of the training providers on board in the way we design it and develop it going forward.
Yeah.
So for anyone who if you're speaking to training providers, Jimmy, who are dubious of the training provider network, and we can put them in touch with any of those leadership group members for them to have a chat with them, because they'll get that transparency then. of what's been discussed at that leadership group and the things we are planning.
Sure. So the health and safety courses, you spoke about the exceptions earlier. Health and safety courses are one of the exceptions. Now being supported at 30% of the average market rate. What kind of feedback have you had about that?
Well, we've had mixed feedback. I'm going to be honest. We've had mixed feedback. It's a shock to people. You know, they've had their SMSTS and the SSSTS paid for more or less. I'm going to just take you back to what I said about skills gaps and skills shortages. We removed first aid. Let's deal with first aid at the same time, if that's okay. We removed first aid funding because it's mandatory funding. It has to be mandatory training, has to be done, and it's not just peculiar to our sector. You know, if you are, you have to have first aiders. So it adds no value, us funding that. It adds no value whatsoever. You would have to do it as a decent employer. You'd have to get that training done. And then we looked at the health and safety training, and there's an argument that that's all regulatory and mandatory training as well. But there's also another argument that actually some of that health and safety training does lead to a degree of occupational competence, particularly for site managers and site supervisors. So the decision was made that we would continue to fund, but at a lower rate. Because it isn't strictly skills training. But equally, it does contribute to some level of competence, and we recognise that. So we've left it in, and it will stay. I think we're paying in at 30% of the median market rate.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, you mentioned the first aid there. It's a bit of a weird dynamic, actually. There's bits mixed feelings about that as well, because some people think that it because it's mandatory, it should be funded, and other people think the opposite.
Yeah, it's not skills training, is it? Imagine if I went to Marks and Spencer's and said, "Hiya, we're a training body. We're going to pay for all your first aiders to be trained." They would go, "Why? Why would you do that?" We get it, and to be honest, and I am being very honest here, we've used funded first aid training to engage very small companies.
Right.
But actually, when we look at the data from employer networks, it isn't the small and micro companies who are claiming first aid training funding. It's the large and mediums.
Yes.
Which is interesting. The smaller micro companies are really interested in skills training.
Yes.
So if you look into that a little bit, and by the way, I don't blame them for doing this, but the large and mediums are probably thinking, okay, that's a way for me to get some levy back because we train so many first aiders. That's not adding value. It's not contributing to filling skills gaps. It's just a transactional relationship. It's just, oh, well, I can get that, so I'm going to take it. Don't blame them for doing it, but why is CITB doing it? It's not a sensible approach.
Okay.
It's not going to change any skills system, is it?
No, that's true. Yeah. So what happens to short courses that were booked before the changes but are going to be delivered afterwards?
What about them? Sorry.
So the short courses that were booked before the changes that were made that are going to be delivered afterwards. What happens with that funding?
So if there were some dates given out, and Jimmy, apologies, I haven't got it in front of me, but there were some dates given out at the time. If you booked them before a certain date or could evidence that you booked them before a certain date, we would honour that funding. Okay. If there are any anomalies, and I've had a few come to me where I've made decisions on, and some of them I've said no to because there was no clear evidence, and some of them I've said absolutely we'll fund that because the evidence is clear. Speak to your local advisor if you're in any doubt about whether your pre-booked stuff will be funded. We're not going to be silly about this. If people have clearly booked training, we will honour it.
Yeah, sure. Cool. So employer networks in practice. So it operates on a fixed annual budget, yeah?
It does.
How do you ensure that funding is distributed fairly across the year?
That's the difficulty, isn't it? Look, we will apply, if we need to, we will apply caps. We're trying to encourage, my advisor team are out there trying to encourage employers to look at training plans and training needs analysis, and we do business reviews with them. We support them to look at what their training needs might be over the next 12 months. It's our responsibility to make sure that budget lasts. The last few months of this current financial year will be tricky for us. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be difficult because we'll have a rush, people thinking that we're going to run out of money and be pushing. Please don't rush to claim funding. Do the training when you intended to do it, because that's the only way that these budgets will work consistently well. We may apply caps, we may apply variable caps depending on the size of company, we may not. We've not made decisions about this yet. Ultimately, we need to get to a place where the employee network steering group is making the decisions about where the funding will be spent in that locality. But we will apply equal amounts every region has a different number of employers, Jimmy, and we will make sure that we apply equal amounts of funding that is worked out based on the number of employers in an area, and then we'll work with our internal governance committees and with the steering groups to make sure that the right amount is made available.
Okay, so people are not going to be aware of the caps as of yet.
As of today, no, they will not. But for next year, so our financial year runs April to March. Yeah. So as of next year, yes, we will make people aware of the funding caps. We absolutely will. Okay, so they've got a little bit of time for the budgeting and stuff like that. Yeah. But as I said, I wouldn't encourage people to rush and spend money on training that they don't need to spend. Yeah. Okay. The employee networks are going nowhere; they are staying. So, yeah. Good. MVQs and funding, we touched on this. This is an area I've got a vested interest in. As you know, Deb, I provide MVQ assessors. A little plug there for anyone out there listening. There's been some concern over the MVQ delivery no longer being supported through the employer network in the way that it used to be, particularly compared to the previous 2030 model. Yeah, so look, we increased funding for MVQs last year, if you remember, and that was to support the grandfather rights stuff. Okay, yeah. That was solely the reason we increased. Now, what we saw was unprecedented demand, and it wasn't all for grandfather rights, which we knew would happen. Don't get me wrong. It is what it is. I don't blame anyone for going out and trying to get an MVQ funded when that funding was available. But the reality is that we've needed to bring it in line with the rest of the funding. So it's been removed from employer networks, but it's still there in the grant scheme, in the core grant scheme offer for competence. Because we recognise that MVQs are competence related. In the absence of a competence framework, the MVQ is the competence measure, and they are funded through that grant scheme as they were previously. Yeah, got that. Yeah, so I think we answered this earlier. One of my assessors who I'm affiliated with, he asked why management funding has been greatly reduced. You touched on that earlier. Yeah, I'm not sure where that's coming from, that management funding's been reduced. I think probably because we've brought the MVQ grants in line with everything else. Yeah. I think it's the level 7s that I think it's talking about the level 7s. That's the long quals that have been removed. Right. And we'll no longer fund level 7 because it's not something that government fund. If that individual wants to have a chat with me or one of the team, I'm more than happy to chat with them about their specific issue, because, you know, with the best will in the world, when we were making these decisions, we were speaking to employers, we were taking feedback, but you can't cover every base. Mm-hmm. So it may be that individual has something that we've missed. So please ask them to either drop me a note, Jimmy, or I'm happy to speak to them. Yeah, sure. Achievement grants are now a flat £600 below level 7, yeah? Yeah. Yes. So this guy in particular, actually, going back to his problems, so he's a bit frustrated. He got approved for the employer network and became a preferred supplier. He got his PO number for 50k to cover him for the year. Then he got taken away, which narrowed his options. It's been taken away? Yeah, I think he's talking about the MVQs in the employer network. Okay. Yeah, so that's narrowed his options. And I know that trainers used to get quite a bit of work from that. Yeah, and we were aware that some training providers will have been impacted, and particularly I don't know the size of this training provider that you're talking about, but I'm suspecting they're quite small and quite focused
Yeah.
on one area.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's not in our interest to be reducing business, and that was never our intent. But we are aware that an unintended consequence of this will be what you've just described. Look, I'm happy to speak to that person. I'm genuinely happy to speak to that person. I can't comment on individual cases in our dialogue here.
Sure. Okay.
Because I don't know the full background, what he's delivering, what his business is about, or I'm assuming it's a him. It might be a her. Sorry.
Yeah, it's him. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not. We don't want to be disadvantaging people. So if there is a conversation to be had there, I am happy to have it with myself and some of the people from the TPN.
Brilliant. Perfect.
Yeah.
Confusion. You mentioned this earlier as well. There's been a lot of confusion, particularly with the website. With us and my assessors in particular, we've been trying to get our head around all of this for ages and ages, to sort of help employers and to advise them how we can help them with the funding and training and that sort of stuff. But it's all just done our heads in, really. But you kindly put us to some of your team who were really helpful, Anthony and another person in the employer network. They were really helpful. What's going to be done on the confusion aspect and the grant portal as well? That's affected a lot of people.
Okay. Now, this is the first time I've heard this. It's not the first time I've heard about the website. Let me be entirely transparent. The website is not great, and we've got a team of people currently, actually my team and indeed in our technology team, who are working on revisions to the website, significant revisions to the website. It was due to launch in a couple of weeks. This is absolute transparency. I decided that we needed to get some more employer feedback on it before we launch, so it's been pushed back a couple of weeks. But that new website is coming. In terms of the portal, I am not tech savvy enough to understand what the problems might be with the grant portal. But what I do know is that if you're hearing this from people, Jimmy, it is worth us doing something, perhaps a webinar, an open Teams call, and inviting people in to ask these questions. If you think that's something sensible for us to do, I can get that organised quite quickly.
Yeah, this information is just what I got from one of your webinars. So on the changes page that you've sent out at the bottom, there were some webinars that were delivered, and on one of those, some of the feedback that was given at the grant portal is just it's just complicated, and it's long-winded.
And this is the new grant portal.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Okay, because we've had really positive feedback on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
When you say
but
new
that's
grant
why.
portal, how new is it?
Oh, this year.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
And if we're talking about the recent webinars, it will be the same. Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
It will be the same portal. Again, I'm not trying to avoid answering questions. I just can't answer the question.
Yeah. Sure.
But if you can get me more specifics and drop me a note, I'm more than happy to get the answers that we need and take the feedback.
Okay.
More than happy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but like I say, any confusion we have had, the team has been really helpful, and also when potential clients have been interested, we just resigned ourselves to, rather than trying to learn, because it's not just the website, it's the funding system in general was quite confusing. We just resigned ourselves to just think, well, let's just put them onto the local advisors. They're the best people to, and that's what's happened. And Justine in Bristol, she's been the diamond. She's been bang on it, like the next day contacting the companies and helping them out. So yeah, I think that's the safest way forward for us.
Yeah.
But
if there's real intrinsic issues with that portal, I need to know about it. So, because I can't do anything about it unless
I haven't actually got details. It's just research from the webinars. That was just some of the feedback from the webinars. That was some of the comments that people were coming up.
Maybe I'll go back and ask someone to pick out those bits. That's helpful. Yeah.
Cool. Attendance grants have been removed. Attendance grant. So that was, I think you said that, was that
We've
about
covered that one. Yeah.
yeah. Large employers, they receive quite a bit of kickback. Large employers won't be supported by the employer networks after March this year.
Yeah. So some large employers have benefited massively from employer networks, and others have found them incredibly frustrating. And that depends largely on their business model and how their businesses are set up. But in all honesty, the employer network, whilst it wasn't close to large employers, it is now, it will be from the 1st of April, it wasn't close to large employers. It was always designed to get small and micros more engaged with training. But large employers have told us that it's not suited to their national footprint. We know that. It's administratively complex for them.
Right.
And it doesn't align with what they need to do, which has meant that we have had a rethink on that. We have removed them from employer networks from the 1st of April. As you know, that was part of the funding announcement. And we will bring in an interim large employer fund from the 1st of April. We're talking to employers about that now. And during that interim 1-year period, we will consult properly with large employers about what they need from us. Large employers benefit from CITB in terms of whatever grant they claim, clearly, and whatever funding they claim, which is fine. But they also benefit if they have supply chains, and most of them do, because we are also supporting and funding their supply chains as well. So for large employers, for me, it's about the value they get back from the levy. But we need to have that really broad and open conversation with them about it. So we'll put an interim offer in place, which will be effective from the 1st of April. We will get that in place quickly in the next few weeks. And then we'll consult with them about what their future offer will look like.
Okay.
And that's where we are with that at the minute.
Do we have any indication of what that interim offer will look like at the moment?
It will make it simpler for them to claim. It will be based on, I want to say expression of interest, but I don't mean expression of interest. We think that we will ask employers to submit, this is what we would like to claim for. We will say, you know what, that looks like a really good plan. Yes, we will pay for X amount of that at this rate, and the rates will be aligned with employer network rates. So there is that equity across the board. But it will allow those large employers to do that central planning and management that they need to do. Yeah, I can't tell you how much they're going to get because we haven't made that decision yet.
No, that's the only drawback. I think that's one thing that some were quite upset about, that they can't budget. So, but this goes back to the short notice thing. They can't really budget for the next tax year because they don't know what funding is available for them.
Yeah.
So you're gonna give them interim offer, and then you're gonna liaise with them, and then decide on what's going to be more permanent
they will
next
know
year.
They will know the amount that is on offer as well before that offer becomes effective on the 1st of April. But I can't tell you what that is today. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Did we touch on? No, we didn't. You mentioned that you haven't increased the levy. I mean, inflation has gone up everywhere, isn't it? You know, house prices, material costs, training fees, operational costs, everything's gone up. Subscriptions. Why haven't you increased the levy to replenish the pot?
Okay, so it's a three-year process. This and it takes a long time to get through this process because of the consultation, because of the internal governance. What we typically tend to do is speak to a number of employers, and then we come up with a number of options, and that then goes to what we call our Levy Strategy Committee, which again is made up of employers and employer representatives, and we put a number of options to them. One of them may or may not be increasing levy rates, one may be keeping the levy rates the same. Whatever those options were, the decision made at Levy Strategy Committee and recommended then to Exec and Board was that we kept the levy rates the same. So that's a group of employers saying we should keep the levy rates the same. That then goes to our board, and board sign that off, and that's in a nutshell why the levy wasn't increased, and we don't have another opportunity to do that for another 2 years.
Okay, I just want to touch on the short notice actually that I missed, the short notice period. I think it was Tim, the new director.
Our CEO,
CEO, I think he mentioned a part of the reason was you had to do it now, Otherwise, some of the funding would have had to be taken away from the apprentices. Is that right?
Yeah, look,
Can you explain that?
Yeah, I'll give you a bit more background on that. Tim's absolutely right, of course he is, but you'll remember, Jimmy, or you may not remember, that we put a stop to the skills and training fund earlier last year, and we gave a 3-month notice period for that. And what happened was that we had surge claiming. I'm not sure that's even a phrase, but we'll use it. And we ended up spending or having to commit a hell of a lot more money to that than we ever anticipated doing. So this was a conscious decision. It was a conscious decision to do this as a short notice thing, because we couldn't risk that surge claiming again. So if, for example, we had given 2 months notice, 3 months notice on these more recent changes, the surge in claiming would have dangerously taken us beyond any spending limit that we were comfortable with, which would have meant more cuts. And as Tim has pointed out, the next place to cut would have had to have been apprenticeship grants, which we don't have the appetite to do, and we don't think industry has either. Look, it's, for me, as leading with customers, it's a really uncomfortable space to be in, that short notice notification. And you don't need to know about the internal bum fights that happen at CITB, but you can rest assured there were plenty, because I'm in a position where I am saying we cannot do this to our customers. We need to treat our customers better. I want you to do this, and ultimately the financial decision wins. It always wins, and that's as it should be. We have to do what's right for the industry and what's right for the business. I've had some really uncomfortable conversations since with some of our National Council members, some of our prescribed organisation leaders, who kind of want to know why they weren't trusted enough to know about this beforehand.
Right.
And it's not a comfortable space to be in. But the reality is that whilst we were living in that demand-led system, forecasting becomes incredibly difficult, particularly when you are growing engagement and you have a group of employers who have just engaged, where you can't predict their behaviour, their training behaviour. So that short notice was deliberate. It wasn't comfortable. It's not something we enjoyed doing. We had to do it to safeguard funding for other parts of our funding system. And I hope that is accepted, because I am very genuine in saying that kind of short notice decision is never a comfortable space for us to be in. I am passionate about our customers, genuinely. And it bothered me no end that we had to do that, but I knew it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, sure. Well, my next question is, why was the apprentices the area that was going to be next to cut due to that notice period? Is it just that you covered everywhere else, and that was all that was left?
That's just it's not necessarily apprentices, but new entrants. So the remainder of our funding is in new entrants, NCC, our National Construction College. It's in on-site hubs, which are about new entrants. It's in sector plans, which are about new entrants and competence. So when you heard Tim say we would have had to cut apprenticeship funding, what he means is that everything else that we've got left that we're funding is about new entrants. And so there would have had to been a cut somewhere. And that would have impacted on new entrants. And the industry just doesn't have appetite for that.
No. This aligns with what you were saying about prioritising the new entrants and making sure they're all right. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Is there any chance of a rise in the levy in the near future, or in the future?
In the future, yes, absolutely. And our levy strategy, internal levy strategy people, Colin Chaplin, whose name will be known externally, leads that team. We're absolutely moving towards what we would like to do before the next consensus and the next levy proposals. And there's no question, Jimmy, that one of the options will be to increase the levy. Absolutely. But that's a long process.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to touch something I wanted to say earlier. You were talking about reserves. What's the difference between the pot and the reserves? Did you mention this earlier?
We did talk about reserves earlier. the pot is the pot. We bring £200 million in levy, and that's what we have to run the business. We bring some commercial income as well, which also helps to run the business. There's no difference. We just need to retain that 50 million of reserves. Now, that's not cash. That 50 million isn't cash. It could be our college. It's made up of assets. It's made up of a bit of cash. But we have to have. We cannot go below that floor. Because that would risk us not being able to pay grant in that 2-month period where we don't collect levy. It's a cash flow issue. So one of the other options going forward is that we take levy over 12 months instead of 10, which would potentially ease that issue and would potentially allow us to go a bit further below that reserve floor.
Okay, understood. We're almost done. Some important questions here. Who do you think will be most negatively affected by these changes, and who stands to benefit the most?
So negatively affected, anyone who look, I'm just going to be very honest, anyone who is sitting behind a desk going, how am I going to get my levy back this year?
Right.
Because that's not what this system is designed to do.
Yeah.
And increasingly it will not be designed to do that. So those negatively affected will be those people who every year say, I've paid X amount in and I want to get X amount out. Now, there are two camps there. There's one camp that just wants the money out. There's the other camp that says, I've paid some levy in, so do you know what? I'm going to use that to train my workforce. And they're the ones that I feel for. However, if they engage properly with us and work with us, we can make sure that they are still getting the funding they need to support their workforce. Who stands to benefit the most? Well, anyone who is engaged with apprentices, who is engaged with our new entrance support team, who is interested and invested in competence frameworks delivery, who engages with our careers activity like Skill Build or Go Construct Ambassadors, and who sees the levy as an investment for the wider industry and utilises any funding to make the most of their own business development. So that's where I would land on that.
Good, I appreciate that. What would you say to those who are frustrated or worried about the changes?
Come and talk to us. To us, because you may have seen a LinkedIn post that I did. In fact, I'm sure you saw it. Yeah. We expected challenge, we expected anger, we expected frustration, and it's fine. I'll take it on the chin. Tim will take it on the chin. The rest of the exec will take it on the chin. What I won't have is my team being abused, and they were, and it's unacceptable, and I will call it out.
Yeah,
it's my people are watching me and how I react to some of the frustration that was displayed on social media. I get the frustration. Come and talk to us, because we're removing complexity from a very complex system. And actually, without sounding patronising, have you completely understood what's still left there for you? Probably not. So come and talk to us and let us tell you. If you're still frustrated then you can come and make a complaint to us, and either myself, Tim, or one of the other exec will deal with that. We get that you're frustrated. I would be frustrated. Please come and talk to us about it. Don't abuse my team, because that's not on.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a case of get your facts straight before you start kicking off a little bit, isn't it?
And if you're going to kick off, come and kick off at me. Yeah. Not at somebody who's just trying to do the job on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and these are supposed to be professionals, aren't they? You know, they professionals part of organisations.
Well, we talk about culture, Jimmy, don't we? And how we need to improve the culture in the industry. And these people who are screaming and shouting at my team are the same people who will, in a year's time, be saying, we can't get anyone to come and work for us. Well, it's no wonder if that's how you speak to your people.
Fair enough.
I know that's churlish, but you know the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Let's work together, let's collaborate, and let's see what you can get out of the system, what value you can draw from CITB, because there will be some.
Yeah, definitely. Finally, what would you change if you could?
Ideal world, I would increase the levy tomorrow slightly. I would increase the levy tomorrow slightly so that we can do more. I would escalate and accelerate the system simplification so that we have a better system for us to bring new entrants into.
What do you think what do you think the industry would feel about you increasing the levy?
I think some of them would welcome it, and others would be really frustrated about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking here about massive increases. I'm saying we need to have a look at the levy. How could we increase it to minimise the impact on the least number of people?
Sure. Well, that's us done, Deb. Thank you very much. There's so much information there, and I do hope people watch this and actually listen, because there is a lot of information there. You're a wealth of knowledge, and
I don't know about that.
but it's been good. It's been really good. People need
I've
to be
really
taking
enjoyed
notes.
it. I've really enjoyed it. I felt challenged, which was good.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
But in a really nice way.
Good.
Nice way.
Good. Well, yeah, well, that's what it's all about. I mean, I'm not here to blow smoke up your arse or anything, but I've spoken to you before, and you have been really helpful to me and to others. And like I said, sometimes people see CITB as this big ogreish entity where you're actually really approachable and actually quite helpful.
Yeah. We try and be. Listen, I'm going to try and send this across, but I don't think I'll be able to. I can put my specs back on now, can't I?
I'm happy to wait, Deb. Wait till.
Are you sure? You sure she sends it tomorrow?
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, that's
lovely.
Cool. No problem at all. Thanks very much for your
time.
It's
been great talking to you, Jimmy. Keep in touch.
Will do. Right. Thank you. Bye then.
See you soon, my love. Bye-bye. Bye.